In January 2023, The Guardian reported that an investigation team had reopened the case of the disappearance of Emanuela Orlandi, a 15-year-old Vatican resident. The girl went missing on June 22, 1983, just a few bus stops from her home. Since then, some claim that she is alive, changed her name, and does not want to report herself. Others think that Emanuela has been dead for a long time. She was the fourth of 5 children in the family of Ercole and Maria Orlandi. The family held a high position in the Vatican and had their own apartment on its grounds. Ercole, like his ancestors, worked at the papal palace. The Orlandi family served the Catholic Church for over 100 years. During that time, there have been 7 popes. The disappearance of the girl occurred during the reign of John Paul II. Emanuela's childhood was spent in the famous Vatican Gardens, which occupy half of its territory. She studied at the Lyceum of Rome and attended a music school near the Sant'Apollinare Opus Dei Catholic Church close to Piazza Navona in Rome. The end of June was vacation time, but 3 times a week Emanuela continued to go to the music school, where she took the usual route, from home to the nearest stop near the Vatican walls, then a few stops on the bus, then walk about 200 meters. On June 22, 1983, Emanuela was late for her music class. She explained to her friend that she was late for a meeting with a representative of the Avon Cosmetics company, where she was going to work part-time. This decision she had not agreed with her parents. Working with a direct sales company was hardly in line with the family's status. After class, Emanuela and her friend walked to the bus stop. There they said goodbye to each other. Emanuela was never seen getting on the bus. There were witnesses who claimed that she got into a dark-colored car. Emanuela's parents contacted the police the same day. Law enforcers advised to wait for some time. The teenage girl could just stay overnight at friends. But the next day, she was put on the wanted list. The newspapers were full of portraits of Emanuela with her parents' phone number and a request for anyone who might have seen her to come forward. 3 days later, a young man called. He said he had spoken to a girl who was selling Avon Cosmetics in Piazza Navona. There were 2 important coincidences in this information: the cosmetics company's products and the square near the music school. The girl did not give her name, but said that she had run away from home and made a living as a street vendor. The young man emphasized that the girl tried with her movements, voice, and even hairstyle to resemble Barbarella, the heroine of the sensational sci-fi film of the same name, released by French and Italian filmmakers in 1968. The role of Barbarella was played by Jane Fonda. The detectives noticed that the by-then old-fashioned movie was released in the year of Emanuela's birth. This could speak both about the strange fantasies of the girl and about the conservative nature of her upbringing. Probably she did not often go to the movies. Another day later, the owner of a cafe near the Vatican gave his testimony. He claimed that he had been visited by a girl who called herself Barbara and said that she had run away from home but would like to return to attend her sister's wedding. The repetition of the name Barbara was deemed not coincidental. Besides, Emanuela's older sister was indeed preparing for her wedding. Alongside with the version of running away from home, a version of kidnapping developed. In his Sunday sermon on July 3rd, Pope John Paul II called on the unknown kidnappers to return the girl to her parents. What could be the motives of the crime, and who could have committed the kidnapping? Emanuela's 21-year-old sister, Natalina Orlandi, told the police that their great-aunt's husband, Mario Meneguzzi, had been trying to get close to her secretly during the past month. She rejected his molestations and even asked her fiancé for help. The young people decided not to tell their parents about the incident so as not to stir up conflict in the family. Detectives believed that the rejected Meneguzzi may have switched to the younger sister. Police questioned the suspect. He did show intemperance towards Natalina but had nothing to do with Emanuela's disappearance. Mario had an alibi. On June 22nd, he and his family were 100 kilometers from Rome. He returned to the capital only the next day. Until his death, Mario Meneguzzi remained on good terms with the family. Every time journalists raised this version, Emanuela's family regarded it as an attempt to lead the investigation down the wrong path and to divert it from the other story. A week before her disappearance, Emanuela told her best friend about an unpleasant encounter in the Vatican Gardens with a priest. Most likely it was about sexual harassment. Emanuela came back in tears. She was scared. She didn't tell anything to her family. Going to the music school, she asked her brother Pietro to accompany her. He, not knowing the true reasons for the request, refused because of the terrible heat, which he regrets by his own admission for 40 years. The friend's testimony did not mention the priest's name. There is no doubt that the Vatican secret police have established his identity. However, his high rank and proximity to the Pope prevented them from suspecting him. About a week after Emanuela's disappearance, the family received a phone call from a man. He spoke with a Turkish accent. He said that Emanuela had been kidnapped by an Islamist terrorist organization in order to exchange her for Mehmet Ali Aga. Aga's name was well known in the early 80s. He attempted to assassinate John Paul II. The Pope was shot 4 times and miraculously survived. Aga was captured and sentenced to life imprisonment. The man reported by phone that he had a tape of Emanuela Orlandi moaning under torture. As proof of the truth of his words, he was ready to leave a basket of Emanuela's personal belongings at an agreed place and demanded that the girl be exchanged for Aga in the presence of the pontiff. In total, he called 16 times from different public telephones. It is unknown whether he actually presented physical evidence and met with Vatican representatives. Later, another version emerged. The Italian mafia had been actively laundering huge sums of money at the Vatican-controlled Ambrosiano Bank. The sudden bankruptcy of this institution led to freezing a substantial amount of money in its accounts, and the Holy See was in no hurry to return it. The mafia decided to put pressure on the Vatican through the hands of Enrico Renatino de Pedis, the leader of one of the most powerful gangs in Rome. De Pedis was characterized as a cruel man ready for any dirty work. According to his mistress, Sabrina Menandri, in the evening of June 22, 1983, De Pedis' gangsters brought him a kidnapped girl, and he ordered to hide her in a house on the coast. He needed the hostage to threaten the Vatican with a sex scandal. Of course, this is about the meeting in the Vatican gardens after which Emanuela ran home in tears. The De Pedis gangsters might have known about the harassment of a high-ranking priest. The blackmail was effective, the mafia received its frozen money, and De Pedis informed the Vatican leaders that he was returning the girl. Emanuela seemed to be brought to a gas station, where a black Mercedes with Vatican license plates was waiting for her, but the car did not take her to her parents. According to one version, after her release by the mafia, Emanuela Orlandi was hidden by order of someone close to the papacy. This is the opinion of Emanuela's brother Pietro. He said that there was an old tape on which the mafioso Enrico de Pedis said that Pope John Paul II from time to time in the evenings went with 2 close Polish cardinals in search of teenage girls for sexual pleasures. His words caused terrible irritation. The Vatican prosecutor's office summoned Pietro Orlandi for questioning, threatening him with prosecution for libel. Emanuela's brother softened his rhetoric, saying that he himself did not accuse anyone, much less the pontiff. He merely recounted the bandits' words. At the same time, he emphasized that such evening walks in those years were no secret to anyone. This is not the first time when information of this kind surfaced. The book by Dutch journalist Eke Overbeck, Maxima Culpa, John Paul II Knew, in which the author claims that while still in office as head of the Krakow Episcopate, Cardinal Karol Wojtyla, the future John Paul II, covered up pedophilia of priests serving under him. The book was followed by several documentaries on the same subject. Many publicists, historians, and political scientists have issued rebuttals, calling such claims speculation and deliberate falsification. In 2015, Italian reporter Emiliano Fittipaldi extracted Vatican estimates from 1983 to 1997 on a girl living in England. Her name was not given. The estimates include medical bills, travel expenses in the UK, bills for tuition at St. Marceline's Institute, and for living in a hostel for young Catholic women in southeast London. The last document was dated 1997, and most likely related to the delivery to Rome of the body of a girl who died for unknown reasons in England. The journalist visited the sites of the mysterious girl. Either at the institute or at the hostel, nobody knew the name of Emanuela Orlandi. But that did not mean that she was not there at all. The girl could have been living under some other name. The version that Emanuela Orlandi spent the second half of her life in London looks plausible, but it also has a lot of opponents who believe that the found estimates could be a specially planted fake. The main argument: if Emanuela was not under total control, moved freely, why during all those years she never tried to let her family know about herself? The same question is difficult to answer for those who believe that Emanuela is still alive, and now her age is 55. Her complete silence can only be explained by the vow of silence imposed on herself. Although there is even a version about Emanuela's converting to Islam and forgetting everything that came before. In May 2019, the lawyer of Orlandi's family, Laura Scrow, received an anonymous message recommending her to look inside a grave in the Teutonic Cemetery, located within the Vatican. The anonymous person claimed that Emanuela Orlandi was buried under a tombstone with a towering sculpture of a reading angel above it. The tombstone was found. The date of its installation was the first half of the 19th century. 4 months later, the Vatican authorities finally authorized the exhumation. To avoid any mistakes, they opened a neighboring grave. The criminalists were in for a sensation, but not the one they had hoped for. The graves turned out to be empty. There were not even the remains of the two princesses who were buried there. No one gave a clear explanation. They referred to the long-standing reconstruction of the cemetery. But during the reconstruction, the graves were never opened. Emanuela's brother suspected that the graves were cleaned out during the 4 months while the issue of permission for exhumation was being considered. The Orlandi family continues to struggle for the truth. The missing girl's father, Ercole Orlandi, died in 2004. According to his son at the end of his life, he said he was betrayed by those whom he served, meaning, of course, the Vatican. Mother Maria Orlandi is 92 years old today. She does not live in her former apartment, but has arranged for Emanuela's room to remain as it was on June 22, 1983. The most active fighter for the truth remains the brother, Pietro Orlandi. From Emanuela's room, he made a kind of a museum. He was able to remind today's Pope Francis about the fate of his sister. According to Pietro, the Pope answered him with one phrase: "She is already in heaven." This reinforced the brother's belief that the Vatican knows more than it says. And until light is shed on this case, speculation, rumors, and theories will continue to proliferate.